Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everybody. Bogdan here, your not so entertaining host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for joining me, by the way. I hope everybody is doing great, and without begging you to hit those small vanity buttons below this video, allow me to dive into Turkey's export dynamics for the 2019-2023 timeframe, in which I will cover the top 20 headings with the largest absolute changes, both positive and negative, while towards the end of the video I will cover Turkey's top 20 headings with the lowest variability given by the coefficient of variation, in order to show you Turkey's competitive advantage at a heading level, but more on this later. Sorry. So first things first, guys, Turkey's largest absolute positive changes for 2023 were driven by heading 7108. So we are talking about gold, basically, who saw a $3.27 billion change and an impressive 16.7% compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years. It was followed by motor cars, so heading 8703 with almost $2.2 billion positive change and a slightly negative compound annual growth rate around 1% for the last 5 years. While on the third spot, we see the covert heading 9999, so commodities not elsewhere specified, who saw a $1.6 billion change from $2.8 billion in 2022 to almost $4.1 billion in 2023, and a positive 15.9% compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, clearly on an upward path. And the list goes on with, I don't know, petroleum oils. We see parts and accessories for tractors, wheat follows with a positive change around $550 million. We see what else? Maize or corn, electrical transformers follows. We have tractors, so heading 8701. Citrus fruit is next with a compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years around 8.4% and a year-on-year change of $223.5 million. Then we see semiconductor devices with a $220 million positive change and a really impressive compound annual growth rate around 22%, sorry. While towards the end of this list we have, I don't know, articles of jewelry, tubes and pipes follows. Then we have cotton, neither carded nor combed, while on the 20th spot we have structures and parts of structures, so heading 7308, who saw a positive change of almost $183 million. These two with a double-digit compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years. And quickly looking at these headings, we clearly see how the automotive cluster is driving a lot of Turkey's export performance. I'm talking about chapter 87. But also chapter 85 emerges as a cluster with 3 headings in this top 10 list. So we are talking about electrical machinery and equipment. So guys, these were Turkey's top 20 headings relative to the year-on-year absolute positive change. And now I'll take a look at Turkey's bottom ones, again in terms of absolute figures. And as we can see here, heading 7214, so bars and rods, saw the largest absolute negative change. We are talking about some $1.9 billion, down to $2.3 billion in Turkey's overall exports for 2023 for this heading. Unmanned aircraft follows with a contraction of $991 million, while the podium ends with heading 7210, so flat rolled products of iron or non-alloy steel, who saw contraction of almost $930 million, bringing thus the overall exports for 2023 to some $1.82 billion. And I don't know, the list goes on with sunflower seeds, for example. So heading 1512, who saw $534 million contraction. Then we have bars and rods of iron or non-alloy steel. Ceramic flags and paving is also here. So heading 6907 with some $396 million absolute negative change. Jerseys, pullovers, cardigans is also present with a $347 million contraction. And towards the end of the list, we see, I don't know, meat and edible offal of falls with a $277 million change. Plates, sheets, film, foil, and strip follows with a $262 million contraction. And on the 20th spot, we have here bed linen with a $228 million negative change, bringing the overall exports for 2023 around $1.1 billion, which is the smallest amount in this 2019-2023 timeframe. As for the overall structure of the exports here, the negative one, we see that chapter 72 is the most active, let's say, counting 7 headings, and a cumulative contraction of almost $4.4 billion. And guys, if you couple this figure with the fact that almost all the headings have negative compound annual growth rates for the last 5 years, it can be said that some structural changes are happening, so it's worth to keep a close eye on this particular cluster. Then we see that chapter 76 follows with 3 headings, and the rest of the chapters are having just 1 heading. So besides chapter 72, which is a commodity intensive chapter, let's say it, prone to big volatilities, the others are not necessarily in a dangerous situation. And the compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, if you look closely to each line, is positive, of course, except for the ones highlighted in red, mostly related to chapter 72. While, I don't know, heading 6907 and 6302, the other 2 with negative changes have had, I don't know, 2 and 1.3% contraction respectively, which, let's face it, is not so worrying. So guys, with these top 20 headings being covered as well, I will now move to the top 20 ones that had the lowest variability. A starting point in analyzing Turkey's potential competitive advantage, and the heading with the lowest variability is 2401, so unmanufactured tobacco, with a coefficient of variation of 0.014 and an overall export value around $256 million for 2023. Then we have agricultural, horticultural, forestry machines with an overall export of $124 million and a coefficient of variation of 0.028. While grapes, fresh or dried, took the 3rd spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.04 and some $647.5 million worth of exports. Then we see pebbles, we have office machines, woven pile fabrics is also present here. Then we have, I don't know, other nuts, either fresh or dried, with a coefficient of variation of 0.063. Household or laundry type washing machines is also present. What else do we have? We see t-shirts, live poultry is next with a coefficient of variation of 0.069. And towards the end of the list, we see dried vegetables we have manufactured tobacco, and on the 20th spot we have heading 6206. So we are talking about women's or girls' blouses with a coefficient of variation of 0.087 and some $620 million worth of exports for 2023. And again, briefly looking at these headings, chapter 84, as we can see here, emerges as an important cluster with 5 headings with, I don't know, washing machines, freezers, and the like, white goods mostly as a subcluster if you want. Tobacco-related cluster is also important with 2 headings, and also with 2 headings we see chapter 8, while the rest of the chapters are present with just 1 heading. So even though we're talking about values and not volumes, a small coefficient of variation is still a good predictor if you want in showing a country's competitive advantage. And in Turkey's case, white goods subcluster confirmed my assumption. Anyways, guys, enough with me bragging here. Please consider this a starting point and not a conclusion. You have to dig deeper when researching. Secondary data is a very good starting point, but it shouldn't replace the primary one. And guys, with this being said, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you've liked it. Don't forget to hit those small vanity buttons so that algorithm gets the idea. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.